what it does and what you can expect. And the reception I got was lukewarm at best. And they told me what? They said, we are here for the human story. For the
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How's everyone doing?
All right.
Welcome to You Say What.
All right.
You're at the right place?
Yeah.
All right. So that's what I'm here for. It's a storytelling extravaganza featuring 5 storytellers, all who have emigrated to the United States, and these are their stories about living in the United States. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm John White. I was born and raised in America, and I'm wondering how I made it on stage. I just don't know how I made it here. Yeah, I don't know if I fit in or not. But don't get me wrong, I'm super excited to be here. I'm familiar with all the storytellers, and we're in for a treat. I think I lied to you. I have an idea why I'm here. I happen to know Miyo. Does anyone know Miyo?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just not some Johnny-come-lately, just jumped on the bandwagon. Like, I knew her when she had a first and a last name. Miyo Yamauchi. That's right. But all of a sudden, she's blown up, and she goes by Miyo. She has a one-woman show. You're familiar with this?
Yeah.
There's a call and response even, you know. I say Miyo, you say yo, I say Miyo, you say, yeah, that's the thing. Anyway, she's really big. And what I'm saying is, I'm her best friend, and that's why I'm here. What, she never mentioned it to you? Okay, so maybe it's like friend bordering on really good acquaintance. Okay, here's the honest truth. When I MC her shows, she responds to my emails within 24 hours. Always with the same response. Remind me which John this is? Anyway, I'm looking at the suitcases, and I have one other confession. Not only am I not an immigrant, I don't travel much at all. I don't own a suitcase. This is my suitcase. It's a backpack, and I packed today because I come from a very far place, North Hollywood, in the valley. And I don't know if you're familiar with that location, but whenever the 405 South is involved, you pack an overnight bag. There's toiletry here, there's a change, there's everything I need here. And when I go to Santa Monica, I bring my pets. I'm just saying, from North Hollywood's perspective, Santa Monica's not only a different country, it's like a different universe. And I have found, when I linger in Santa Monica, what others would call loiter, I get these pointed questions like, what is your business here, sir? How long do you plan to stay? The sun is setting in 2 hours. Do you mind making it back to the valley? So, just in case I'm with Miyo doesn't work, I got the passport. You always have to have a fallback plan when you're from the valley. Because let's face it, living in the valley itself is a fallback plan, is it not? Yeah. One more thing I have to confess to you. I did travel internationally once, 1995, Paris. It was our honeymoon. We spent 8 days there. It was great. The 5th day, we started missing America and her food. So can you imagine this? We're in Paris on my French stinks, Champs-Élysées, at McDonald's. Don't judge me. It was her plan. She insisted. We ordered, I sit down, and suddenly realize there's no ketchup. I get up to go to the ketchup, and there's a huge line. Now, I don't travel much, but I'm aware of my reputation as an American. You know, we're loud, we're rude, we're uncouth, and I think it's best encapsulated by the ugly American, is that correct? Okay, so I'm not about to crash the line and say, get out of the way, you French people, my American bride is more important than you. I don't want to add to that. So I waited in line. 5 minutes later, my bride said, where's my ketchup? What's up? They're cold. Anyway, an ugly American on ugly American fight ensued. It was just something else. And she just bolted out of the McDonald's. I finished the fries because I didn't want to be an ugly American and someone who wasted food. I didn't need to add that to my reputation. And just as I'm leaving, I didn't see these security barriers, which were right about crotch high. I hit them with such force. I went crumbling onto the floor. My life flashed in front of me, a life that did not include kids. That's how bad this impact was. Fortunately, I chased her down, and we made up. We made up like all lovers do in Paris. In fact, how all lovers make up internationally. We made sweet love. Yes, we did. It was beautiful. I don't know if I should share this with you, and I say it at the risk of losing my man card. I love making love. But sometimes, occasionally, every night, okay, that particular night, I enjoyed the moment right after making love. It was peaceful. It was quiet. All my burdens had been lifted. There was no conversation, no questions. I felt myself just fade into really what was a heaven-like state. Suddenly it was disrupted. I got 2 elbows to the ribs. John, you're not asleep, are you? No, just spend a little time in heaven, honey. What can I do for you? You know what would be great right now? An apple pie from McDonald's. Are you serious? It's like 11 o'clock. I don't even know if they're open. I said this to myself. And I saw a look from her that I'd seen once or twice, but then I would later recognize and see more frequently, which basically, get up and do it, was the look I got from her. So I dressed, I put on my protective cup, because the next time I see those security barriers, I was going to be prepared. And I went out into the night, into the cold, unfamiliar city. And I had a big smile on my face. You know why? And let's face it, I was in love, I was in Paris, and my next encounter with McDonald's did not involve ketchup. That's my story. All right, you ready for this? You ready?
Yeah.
All right. He has a special prop because he's special, as they all are. Our first storyteller is Roy Cruz from the Philippines. Do you remember your dream when you were growing up? What was it? For years, Roy buried his dream deep inside because he thought it was impossible for so many reasons. But then he moved from Manila to Los Angeles, and he thought his dream might finally be possible. Let's find out what dream Roy dared to chase. Please welcome Roy Cruz, chasing Meryl Streep.
When I was a little kid, I didn't know who to play with. I was too soft to play with boys, and playing with girls, I was often their token playmate. Boys made fun of me because I was a weakling, effeminate, and I sucked at sports. Girls, especially my sisters, loved to play with me because I was their mascot. My sister loved to play pretend games. When they wanted to play like they were in a wedding, they made me into a bride, complete with a veil. One time, my older sister played the part of the doctor. She asked me to put a pillow under my shirt and pretended that I was pregnant and giving birth, until my mother saw us and aborted our game of childbirth. Although she laughed when she saw me in labor. I felt a lot of shame when my mother caught me playing a pregnant woman, so I stopped going out to play with any kids, even with my sisters. I found a new activity that only me can play, watching movies. When school was finished, I could not wait to go home to watch afternoon specials. I looked forward to watching old Hollywood movies. Movies that were masculine-oriented, like war or action, never really appealed to me. When I get home from school, after a rough day because I was bullied, I knew there were old movies that would give me comfort. A movie where the female lead slaps a man or shoots her philandering husband, I would feel like I have avenged myself from those who tried to make my life miserable. Through imitating them, I felt strong and powerful. The Hollywood actresses I watched every afternoon were like my babysitters. They protected me. As a kid, I was always asked by adults what I wanted to be when I grow up. I would always answer, a doctor, just to shut them up. The truth is, I wanted to be an actress. But I couldn't really say it because I knew the reaction would be, but you're a boy. The fantasy of one day I will be an actress was something that I kept. I knew it would never come true because I'm a man. But in my dreams, I was already attending the Juilliard School of Drama. When I was in high school, I saw the movie The French Lieutenant's Woman, starring Meryl Streep. I was mesmerized by her performance and the way she delivered her lines. With her alabaster skin and frizzy hair, wearing a dark brown cape, she looked so enigmatic and intensely beautiful. There was one line in the movie that stayed with me, and I kept on memorizing it. The line goes, "I am nobody. I am hardly human anymore. I am the French lieutenant's whore." When she said that line, I told myself, one day I will be that woman. Meryl Streep, not the whore. Before moving to this country, I enjoyed the privileged life. I had a good career. I was working for the entertainment industry in the Philippines as a writer of mediocre TV shows. I was on my way to becoming the head of a bigger mediocre TV show, but then I realized there was something missing. You know, being gay back then in the Philippines was you had very limited opportunities. Although being gay was tolerated, we were extremely judged. It's a very conservative Catholic country, and there weren't a lot of room for innovations. Even though my life was comfortable, there was something missing. I had to find out what it was. So I packed my bags and moved here with $800 and never looked back. I didn't have a plan. I knew I wanted to be in show business. I kept my dream of becoming an actress alive. I found an office job and started the journey to be somehow part of the Hollywood machine. After seeing Janine Garofalo perform in a comedy club, I got so inspired that I took a workshop, a stand-up comedy workshop, actually here in Santa Monica Playhouse 23 years ago. I'm aging myself, okay? I took a workshop and hit the comedy circuit. It was challenging at the beginning because I was fresh off the boat. I also had a strong Filipino accent. And back then, gay comics who were out were few and far between, let alone a Filipino gay comic with an accent. I sometimes felt that people were laughing at me because of my accent, not because of my material. But one day, after a performance, a fellow comic approached me and said, "I love the way you talk. You sound like a Filipina Jessica Rabbit." When I heard that, I told myself, I have arrived. In the mid-2000s, the movie The Devil Wears Prada, remember that? Came out, starring Meryl Streep. I adored that movie and saw it 6 times in the theater so I could memorize the lines. I just loved the cerulean speech. Remember that speech? Yeah, okay. So I memorized it because I really was enamored by that movie. So let me do it for you. Something funny? Oh, okay. I see. You think this has nothing to do with you. You go to your closet and you select, I don't know, that lumpy blue sweater because you're trying to tell the world you take yourself too seriously to care about what you put in your bag. But what you don't know is that sweater is not just blue, it's not turquoise, it's not lapis, it's actually cerulean. And you're also blindly unaware of the fact that in 2002, Oscar de la Renta showed a collection of cerulean gowns. And then I think it was Yves Saint Laurent, wasn't it, who showed cerulean military jackets? I think we need a jacket here. And then cerulean quickly showed up in the collection of 8 different designers, and then filtered through the department stores, and then trickled on down to some tragic casual corner where you know that fished it out of some clearance bin. However, that blue represents millions of dollars and countless jobs, and it's sort of comical how you think you made a choice that exempts you from the fashion industry, when in fact, you're wearing a sweater that was selected for you by the people in this room from a pile of stuff. So when I memorized that, I had a couple of days later, I was in a comedy show and my mind completely blanked. I forgot my material, because from memorizing the speech. So what I did, oh my God, I have an opportunity to perform the speech. So I performed that in a comedy show, and then I realized that after taking that risk of doing that show, I had an idea, a light bulb moment. Why not create a show about Meryl Streep, where I get to play one of her characters? Thus, the show Street Tease, an evening of Meryl Streep monologues performed by an all-male cast was born. It's a live theater show where 8 gay actors performed their favorite Meryl Streep monologue as an homage to the greatest actor of all time. I start the show with a monologue, and then it ends with the cast members dancing to Mamma Mia. The show was a critical and box office success. I was able to bring it to San Francisco and then New York. I couldn't have done it in the Philippines because there I repressed my dreams. But this country encourages you to keep your dreams alive. America has gotten a bad rap these days because of our politics. But one thing I love here, and I will never take for granted, is that it's only in America where individuality is nurtured. I just wanted to be an actress like Meryl Streep, even for a day, but the show lasted 2 years. Los Angeles is where you can customize your dream. You may not achieve the exact dream, but you have been building, but if you keep on manifesting it, the road to achieve it is right in front of you. I'm glad I made the decision to move here. I was able to express myself and pursue the dream of being an actress, being Meryl Streep, without having a sex change.
I was so excited about being here and seeing you all, I forgot about the housekeeping rules. So but you apparently didn't need any directions. Turn off your cell phone if you would, or silence it. Some of you, like me, think you know how to silence it, but you don't. So just shut it off. The restrooms are, you came in the long corridor down over there. It's a short show, so I think you can hold it. For the age, that's not an option. Just be discreet, dude, okay? That's all I'm saying. Just try to do that. Ready for our second story?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm excited. Our second storyteller is Trinidad-born and England raised, Lichelli Lazar-Lea. Does anyone know the hip-hop club called the Disco Fever in New York City? If you do, let me hear it, because I can't see you all. Has anyone heard of it? No. Well, let me tell you a little about it then. The Fever is the first hip-hop club ever and features such acts as Grandmaster Flash, Salt and Pepper, and the Beastie Boys. Okay, so now we're starting to warm up. Okay. Coming from a small town in England and not knowing the neighborhood, Lichelli's visit to the Fever on a Saturday night in 1994 was like a spin-off of the classic action film The Warriors. Get ready for a bumpy ride. Lichelli Lazar-Lea in the Fever.
Obviously, it's 1994. I am 22 and I'm visiting New York for the first time, and I'm so excited to be here because New York is the capital city of the world. You know, it's the Big Apple. It's New York, New York. So nice they named it twice. And in New York, you've got someone from everywhere, as opposed to where I grew up in England, where we were the only ones from somewhere else and suffered as a result. Now, I've done all the typical things you do as a tourist in New York City. I've been to the Empire State Building, Times Square, I've even taken a boat out to the Statue of Liberty. But now I want to do something really special. Now I want to visit the South Bronx. You know, and normally people think, well, she wants to go to the South Bronx because she's into baseball and wants to go to Yankee Stadium. But no. Like Roy said, I want to go because there is a landmark there, a hip-hop club called the Disco Fever, the Fever is most commonly known, that was the first hip-hop club ever. It was opened in 1976, when very few people outside of the New York borough even knew what hip-hop music was, let alone going to a place to dance to it. I mean, it was 3 years before Rapper's Delight was on the radio, for God's sakes. And I just want to take a moment just to think about that for a second, because 50 years ago, a style of music was invented by DJ Kool Herc, Coke La Rock, and a bunch of black and brown street poets living in poverty in the South Bronx that now is a $10 billion a year industry that has music that advertises everything, including sketches by Snoop Dogg. You know? Anyway, so 1976 is Grandmaster Flash that's spinning at the Fever, and like John said, you know, LL Cool J, Run DMC, Beastie Boys, Salt and Pepper, they all performed their first shows there. But the real reason that I want to go to the Fever is because my best friend in England, a hip-hop DJ called DJ Mac McRaw, Mac to me, he said to me, if you make it to New York before me, promise you'll go to the Fever and tell me all about it. Well, if there are any Gen Z in the audience, I know my kids here, they said I should explain that back in 1994, very few people had cell phones. There were no smartphones to give you directions. You actually had to use a physical map, and then sometimes you'd actually have to ask strangers for directions. But we're in the lobby of our hotel, our fancy hotel on 5th Avenue, and we're asking the concierge to give us directions on how to get to the South Bronx. And he's flatly refusing to tell us how to get there. And I'm there with my girlfriend, and she's also mixed race, and we're proudly black, you know, 90s. And, but I am specifically in my very radical, you know, black power phase of my development. And so for me, when the white man concierge is refusing to give us directions to go to the South Bronx, it is because he's a racist, because that's where the black folks live. It doesn't occur to me it's because we are female tourists. It's a Saturday night, and the South Bronx was at the tail end of the crack epidemic. But, you know, I'm not listening to that. So I've got my pocket map, and I figure out that we have to take the D train from Columbus Circle to 167th Street. Now we get on the train, and it's packed with, you know, a usual assortment of multi-ethnic New Yorkers. And then when we get to 125th, the last of the white people get off the train, leaving only black and Latinos to go to Harlem because, like I said, it's 1994. Okay, we continue on the train, and some Latinos, you know, some young Puerto Rican kids start catcalling us on the train, like, "Hey, chulitas, mommy, sexy," and a bunch of other things I can't really repeat. And then they get off the train at 145th, and then at 155th, everyone gets off the train except for us and the sleeping homeless person. Our stop, like I said, is 167th. And the station looks like the set from the movie Jacob's Ladder. There's got one lone light, there's graffiti on the walls, missing subway tile, a dripping water pipe. And even though Jacob's Ladder is not my favourite movie, I start to think, well, maybe this wasn't such a good idea. But I made a promise to my friend Maka, you know. And then we hear the sounds of male voices heading towards us down the platform. And Ohio, my friend from Ohio, she totally freaks out. She's like, oh my God, we're going to get stabbed and raped and die. And even though I think, she's probably right, you know, I'm not going to give up that easily. So I think, okay, we've got to figure out a way to look like we belong here. And so I think, who is the baddest, dopest New York fly girl out there? And then she comes to me in a vision from Spike Lee's 1989 classic, Do the Right Thing, Rosie Perez. So we transform ourselves from like terrified small-town foreigners to strong, sexy, baricuas. And we strut down the platform with so much attitude that we look like we invented reggaeton. And make it up to the exit where we kind of hug each other and just with a mixture of disbelief that we can't believe we actually pulled it off, because the young men didn't even so much as give us a second glance. But now we're stuck there because we can't go down to the southbound platform, otherwise we'll know we're in the wrong place. So we've got to get to the Fever, we've got to get there fast. But I can't pull up my pocket map and look to figure out how to get there. Fortunately, I had studied the map a little bit when I was figuring out what train to take, and I knew that we had to make a left out of the exit. But no amount of map studying could have prepared us for what we're about to see in the streets. I mean, it's a war zone. I want you now to picture New Jack City meets The Walking Dead. I mean, there are no street lights, so crackheads are wandering around in the darkness. I mean, the only light comes for this tiny bodega that's serving people down a chute through multiple layers of bulletproof glass. I grab Ohio and I kind of yank her out of the subway to the left, and we pass drug dealers that are leaning against a Calypso red BMW with gold rims. They don't pay us no mind, so we keep going past working girls that are kind of loitering outside this burnt-out brick building that's glowing from the inside from the light of fires. And now we're on East 167th Street, and I remember that from the map. And I know it dead ends at Jerome Avenue, where the Fever's located. So we power walk for like 5 minutes down this desolate street, terrified that someone's going to jump out on us from behind parked cars, you know. And then when we get to Jerome, we bust into the first spot we find that's blasting hip-hop. Now, seated at the bar are real live pimps. I mean, wearing zoot suits, you know, and they're watching MTV that's suspended from his TV above the bar. And the men all kind of turn and look at us like this, and so we kind of back out as quickly as we got in. But at this point, I know we're close to the Fever. And Ohio's like, and I was like, shut up. And I pull around the corner where we see this huge bouncer and a bunch of teenagers trying to talk their way into what could only be a club. Well, the bouncer sees us, and he lifts not a velvet rope, but a chain to let us in, and is like, evening, ladies. And so we enter the Fever. And everything's painted black. We go down a long corridor to the ticket booth, and they wave us on, presumably because it's ladies' night. And then we go down these narrow stairs that are missing tiles, so we can go down the stairs into the Fever itself. And it was nothing how I imagined, you know. First of all, it's Jamaican dancehall night, so no hip-hop. I love dancehall, but that was not what I was looking for. And the whole dance floor is missing tiles. So like a b-boy or a b-girl could easily break their necks if they tried to break dance on that, you know? So we head to this semicircular bar and we sit down and we're like, we hatch a plan. We're going to have one stiff drink, just to celebrate still being alive, and then we're going to ask the bartender to call us a cab so we can get back to Manhattan. We sit down and the bartender comes over, he's very friendly, and he's asked us what we're doing in New York, and I'm still doing Rosie Perez. You know, I tell him that we're in town from Cali for the new music seminar, which I know is going on at the time, and then I order 2 rum and coke, like this. And then he said, their drinks are on the house, and then he said, you've got to meet my boss. And so the boss comes out, and the boss is really friendly, and he starts telling us about the history of the Fever and the renovation plans, and then starts talking about his family and pulls out these photos of his wife and his daughters, and which is really sweet, but a little odd, you know. And at this point, I'm starting to notice that there's a kind of weird vibe going on in the club, right? All the locals, the African-American, Jamaican locals, are kind of like keeping their distance around us, like we've got this invisible wall, you know? And so I start trying to put 2 and 2 together. And I realize that the bouncer, the person at the ticket booth, the bartender, the boss himself, are all Puerto Rican. Our impressions of Rosie Perez are so bloody good. They think we're one of them, you know? So in order to just figure out if I was right, I kind of slide down the bar next to this kind of dark-skinned young man who's very nervous to be so close to me. And I'm like, are you staying away from us because you think we're Puerto Rican? Like this, right? And he kind of nods without making eye contact. And I'm like, well, you can tell everyone we're not. Like this, right? And he kind of slips off his stool and goes into the body of the club, you know? And then a few minutes later, it seems like the vibe has cooled down. Everyone's kind of starts mingling around us, you know. One young man even gives me $20 so I can buy a drink for him, because apparently the bartender knows he's underage and won't serve him. So at this point, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, and we've almost had a good time, you know. And so, but you know, we've got to leave. So I asked the bartender if he can call us a cab. To this, he bursts out laughing, like hysterically. And then he tells his boss, who starts laughing too, and soon everybody in this club is laughing at our expense. And so the owner comes over and he goes, Mijita, ain't no taxis around here, but don't worry, my driver will take you back to Manhattan. And so I'm like, okay, this is how it's going to happen. Like, God has spared us from getting raped and murdered on our way to the Fever, because he realizes how important it is to keep a promise to a friend. And now it's over. You know? But like, what other choice do we have? like, we can't walk back up to Crack Central and get the train, and so we have to accept the ride. So we take a deep breath and we follow the boss out the front of the club, where all the kids from earlier in the evening are cooing around his gold Mercedes. And his 6-foot driver opens the door for us, and we kind of slide into the back seat, like terrified, you know. And the boss gets into the front passenger seat, and we take off. And as he's driving, he pulls like a demi-bottle of champagne from the mini fridge and pours us glasses of champagne. But we're too scared to drink because we think they've been roofied, you know. And we discreetly hold hands, you know, and every turn they make, we like hold our breath thinking, this is it, this is the moment they're going to pull into some like parking lot and we're going to get raped, you know. But it never happens. He just talks about his family the whole time, and before we know it, we're driving over the bridge into Manhattan and down Fifth Avenue and being let out in front of our hotel. And the boss basically says, you know, thank you so much for coming to the Fever, and next time you're here, come back and see the renovation we've done. And we kind of stand there like arseholes, you know, feeling terrible about this, you know, the idea that we had about these two men. Just kind of wave them goodbye as they drive off, Puerto Rican, you know, knights in their shining Mercedes, you know. Anyway, I've been back to New York multiple times now, mostly for work, and I've never had the opportunity to go back to the Fever and see the renovations. But I have heard that the neighborhood is completely different now, like Harlem. But I got to tell you that every time I go to New York, I am still mistaken for Puerto Rican at least one time during my stay, without having to do a terrible Rosie Perez impression these days. And it just feels awesome being thought of as someone in a world of everyone, like in New York. So thank you so much.
Our third storyteller is Traynor from Argentina. When it comes to Argentina, there's one thing that shines brightly: free, good health care. Yes, you heard that's right. It's top-notch and it's free. Like, doesn't cost a dime free. Are you getting the free part? So you can imagine when Frank came to America, he was overwhelmed with this notoriously complex and costly healthcare system. Sounds like a lot of paperwork and costly co-pays, doesn't it? Let's hear what kind of troubles Frank faced. Please welcome Frank Traynor, Christmas Miracle.
I hate Christmas. But it wasn't always like that. Growing up, it was my second favorite religious holiday right after my birthday, of course. But then eventually I grew up and I became an atheist, and I just couldn't bear to celebrate the birth of a God that allows so much pain and suffering in the world. So in 2016, when my daughter Matilde is supposed to be born on December 15th, and Christmas is slowly approaching and she's not showing any signs of showing up, I'm starting to get really worried. What if she's born on Christmas Day and then my family and friends will make fun of me forever that this is a sign to go back to believe and celebrate Christmas with them? I'm not doing that. And then on the morning of December 21st at 6 in the morning, fortunately my wife Martina finally goes into labor. So we quickly get in our car and we drive to Cedars-Sinai Celebrity Hospital, and we're so excited. This is our first time here. The thing that worries us, of course, is how much is this going to cost us? But we have faith that things are going to be fine, because after all, this is the hospital where Kim Kardashian had all her children. So excited. So excited. Then they put us, when we get there, they put us in this small windowless room, and it's cold and dark, and we have to wait there for hours with no one, like literal hours, like 6 hours, with no one coming to tell us what is going on, when the doctor is coming, and I'm growing impatient and anxious and angry, because this is definitely not the way that Kim Kardashian was treated when she gave birth to this hospital. What is this? So then finally, after many hours, the doctor shows up and tells us that we have to stay, and my wife has to be admitted, because even though she hasn't dilated enough yet to start pushing and whatnot, her blood pressure is a little high, and that is, as you maybe know, not a good sign. Then they take us to this very different room upstairs, and the second that the doors open, I can hear this heavenly choir going like, oh, which is strange because there is no heaven, as I stated before. This room is so different. It's like a 5-star hotel room with medical equipment. Through the huge picture window, we can see the Hollywood sign, and I think to myself, this is where my daughter is coming into this world, and this is more like Kim Kardashian, finally. So my wife, turns to me when I'm thinking of that and goes like, asks me to get the nurses to get her the epidural, and I quickly realized that she is forgetting about the natural drug-free birthing class we took, and but I get it, it was full of BS. Like the first day when we got there, we were greeted by this lady, and the first thing that I asked is, hi, is this the abortion clinic? And the first thing that I learned is that they have no sense of humor. But I should have known it was at a church. When I'm thinking of that, like my wife Martina grabs me by the arm and just goes like, tell them to get me the drugs right now! In her timid voice, of course. So the nurses bring her the epidural and she's fine, and we go to sleep, and we wait until the next morning. And the next morning, the doctor shows up, the epidural is gone, and the pain is back with a vengeance, and the contractions are really strong, and like the time is coming, and the doctor says that she's ready and she's dilated enough, but just in case she wants to do a tap to see how things are going. So then the doctor shoves her entire arm inside my wife and goes, I touched the baby's nose. Oh! To which I go like, oh, that's so cute and disgusting at the same time. But the doctor says that the problem with touching the nose is that it means that the baby is coming down facing forward, which could be very painful but also potentially very dangerous. But all I'm thinking is like, no, it's fine. She's just curious. She's just very curious about what the world is going to be when she comes out, and she's also my child, so she's maybe a little dumb. So the doctor proposes a C-section, and my wife refuses completely. She wants the most natural birth possible, which I agree with because it's her choice, not mine, so I have no opinion. So the doctor comes up with a new plan, which is to fix the position of the baby with her hand. And my wife is like, sure, let's do it. So then the doctor a second time shoves her entire arm inside my wife, and with no anesthesia starts moving the baby with her hand by the head. My wife is in the worst pain of her life, and I'm completely useless, like most husbands in those situations, right? The doctor is done, and she fails to move the baby, so the C-section is the only option we have left. And my wife is very disappointed, but she has no option but to accept. And I know how important things were for her, so I just approach her and go, hey, how are you feeling? Tell them to get this baby out of me right now any way they can! In her sweet, sweet voice. So then, the morning of December 22nd, finally my wife is crucified to a table and is waiting for the doctor to begin the C-section. One of the nurses approaches us and goes, hey, would you like to play any music during the procedure? And I look at my wife in a very emotional, movie-like, scene, and I go, what if we listen to The Great Dig in the Sky by Pink Floyd? Because of course a woman screaming at the top of her lungs for 3.5 minutes in a loop for the next, 30 minutes is exactly what my wife needs to listen to right now. And my wife is like, no, I need silence and peace. I'm in the worst pain of my life, crucified to this table. Her sweet, sweet voice. And then the doctor comes, and the C-section begins, and a couple of minutes later, Matilde, my daughter, comes out of my wife, and as her life begins, mine starts all over again. And then we go back to the room, and that night we have the first horrible night of waking up every 2 hours to feed the baby and change the diaper, which makes me realize why sleep deprivation as a form of torture is a war crime. And then the 23rd is pretty uneventful. The first day is pretty uneventful. Not much happens. The only maybe thing is that my wife seems to not be producing a lot of milk. And it's also a very cold winter for Los Angeles. It's like 70 degrees, so of course we turn up the heating all the way to 90, as one does. And we wrap the baby in a lot of blankets, And then the 24th, Christmas Eve, is finally when things take a turn for the worse, because Matilda, my daughter, gets a fever, a high fever, which is not good in such a small 2-day-old baby. Now again, the issue we have is that it's Christmas Eve, so all the real adult doctors are gone, they're off, and we're left behind with a bunch of fresh out of med school teenagers who have no idea what they're doing, and they want to play Dr. House with my daughter, and like, it's basically like Santa left Christmas after the elves, and the elves are all drunk. So they tell us that maybe the fever is because she has an infection, maybe it's meningitis, and maybe she will be brain damaged for life, but that is if she survives, don't worry. We are so scared, we don't know what to do. At the same time, our entire family is messaging us from Argentina, Merry Christmas! They know we don't celebrate why they're doing this to us right now. They don't know any of this news, of course, but still, why are you wishing me Merry Christmas? I'm an atheist, leave me alone. At that time, my family never felt so far away in every possible sense of that word. Then the doctor comes and says that we need to do some blood work to see what is going on. But of course, the rookie nurse has no idea how to find a vein in such a small baby. So just in case, she pokes both her feet 1,000,000 times, and she gets like one droplet. Good job, Nurse Jackie. The results of the blood work are not good. So the doctor tells me that he wants to do a lumbar puncture. Let me explain that to you. The doctor wants to shove a huge, long, thick needle between the vertebrae of my 2-day-old daughter. And I have no choice. I have to accept, because we need to see what is going on. So the doctor tells us to not worry about it. They're going to take the baby and bring her back to the room when they're done. And I can't wait at the room. I can't. So, but I don't want my wife to know that I'm going to go full 007 on the doctors. And I tell her that I'm going to go for a walk while we wait. And when the doctors go with the baby, I just follow them, to the hospital without them seeing me. And I wait outside the room while they're going to do the lumbar puncture. And inside, all I can hear is Matilda, my daughter, who's barely 2 days old, screaming for her life. And it's like they're killing her in there. But outside, I'm the one who's dying. Before they're done, I go back to the room because I don't want the doctors to see that I sneaked to follow them and see what they're doing. I'm the worst spy in the world, but at least they don't see me. I go back to the room, and when they come back with the baby, the doctor tells us, well, I have good news and I have bad news. Because everyone knows that the most professional way to conduct yourself as a doctor is talking like an idiot character in a comedy, right? Well, the good news is that she did fine. And I already know that the good news are a lie, so what the bad news going to be? The bad news is that we couldn't get any liquid, so we gotta do it again a little later. He acts like he's about to say, oopsie, at the end. That's it. I'm done. I'm done. I can't believe this is what the U.S. healthcare system actually is. I've been waiting so many years to experience this celebrity hospital doctor, and like, this is it? They're torturing my baby? No, wait a second. No. So I tell the doctor that we have to think about it, and we'll let him know if we authorize this to be done on our baby, and he leaves. And that is when I call my brother, Carlos. My brother Carlos is a doctor. He's a really good doctor, and I trust him. He's all the way down in Argentina, celebrating Christmas with his wife and their children and his wife's family. And I call him, and everyone is partying really loud in the background, because that is how we celebrate Christmas in Argentina. And we're really loud, and we light fireworks and whatnot. It's like 4th of July, but with Christmas, what we do. And I tell him what is going on, that my wife is not really producing any milk, and that the baby has a fever, and that maybe it's meningitis, maybe it's an infection, maybe she will be brain damaged for life, and that is if she survives, and maybe these are not real doctors, like they're, thank God that is being born today. And then my brother asks me to ask the doctor to explain to me the results of the blood work, and then for me to translate that for him to Spanish, which tells me that my brother highly overestimates my knowledge of the English language. So I call the doctor and I ask him to explain to me the results of the blood work, like I'm a man who never went to med school, but who is also a complete idiot. The doctor then begins, and he's so excited. He's so excited to be telling me all this information. He's like, so excited. He's like talking to me about like the white blood cell count and all these medical terms that I have no idea how I'm going to translate to my brother in Spanish. And then halfway doing all this, the doctor like interrupts himself and just goes like, oh my God, sorry, like I'm so happy. This feels like I'm giving a lecture in med school. Because everyone knows that the most professional way to conduct yourself as a doctor is to talk like a dumb character in a coming of age movie, right? So when he's done, he leaves and I call my brother and explain to him the results however I can, and my brother just begins to laugh. It's like, dude, are you real right now? Dude, these American doctors, they just have no idea what they're doing. What is going on? It's like, those results are all normal. The thing is that you morons wrap the baby in a lot of blankets and turn the heating all the way up to 90 as one does. And the baby has not been eating for a couple of days, so she's dehydrated, and that's why she has a fever. Remove the blankets, turn down the heating as one doesn't do what you should do, start giving her formula, and she will be fine right away. And then he gives me the best advice anyone has ever given me in my life. Newborn babies are rookie parent proof. Merry Christmas, you filthy animal. So then I call the doctor, and I do that thing that all doctors love when the patients do, and I explain to him, I the patient explain to him what to do. And I go, my brother, who is a doctor in a small town in the third world, says that you, first world celebrity hospital Ivy League doctor, have to do the following. Fuck off! So then, you do as my brother said, and on Christmas Day, we finally get our Christmas miracle, and my daughter's fever goes down, and it doesn't go back up, and she's chugging formula like a drunk uncle drinking eggnog on Christmas Day, and I'm just so happy. And then we just have to wait 2 more days until the 27th, until the real doctors are back, and they go like, oh yeah, your brother was right, we're still sorry. And then discharge us. And we go back home to our 3 cats who we treat like our children, who are just waiting so crazily to meet their human daughter, who we now treat like a cat. And a couple of years later, Matilde learned about this fat guy who lives in the North Pole, and every year, 3 days after her birthday, brings her even more presents. And her birthday, by the way, is her favorite religious holiday, just like me. And that fat guy, unlike God, is totally real according to her. And she made me stop hating Christmas right away. And we began to celebrate again. But we don't just celebrate any Christmas, we celebrate the most pagan, capitalist Christmas in the world, because that's what the US taught me when I moved here. It's filled with presents and decorations and delicious food and Nat King Cole carols, of course. Chestnuts, I don't know the lyrics, guys. And in that Christmas, the most important thing is not a God, it's family. And that's the most important thing to me. Just like Kim Kardashian.
Sure, we will meet with the storytellers, but Frank has a family obligation, probably involves.
Matilde survived 7 years now. And we have trunk or treat, unfortunately, right now, starting in like 30 minutes. So I have to drive back because she was like, are you doing your show and missing my trunk or treat? And I was like, I'm not. I'm driving back at such a fast speed in our Prius. Thank you.
Number 4, bonjour. Our next storyteller is Martine Brousse. Born and raised in France, Martine was a world traveler before landing at LAX in 1984. But it takes more than an address to relocate and nourish one's roots. Today she shares the critical quest she has been on since day one, searching for the symbol of what it means for America to be truly called home. Martine Brousse, becoming French in America.
It shone like a star in the early dusk. I climbed the ramp as if on a pilgrimage, stepped through the gate, and wow, this place was huge. The forum, the fabulous forum. I must have stood up the whole game, mesmerized by the giant crowd and magic there on the floor. Come on, let's go. We need to beat traffic, said my friend at the end. What traffic? I've been in LA 2 days. Yeah. Everything was big in America. Lines at Disneyland were big. The city was endless. Malls were huge. My boyfriend and I were visiting his childhood friends. But we had a plan, a few months touristing and then off to Australia. We got to Yosemite, and there even trees were gigantic. But it was driving 80, at least, on empty roads. They were emptier back then. You know, we're driving real fast from national park to national park, taking it so many wonders. That's when I got a taste of freedom. My views, perspective expanded. And soon my waistline, because, you know, those Vegas buffets. Now, people personalities were big too. Friendly, welcoming, confident, loud, a little bit too much in your face for this introvert at times. Yes, I had left France, a bad situation, and become a world traveler, but I knew that wherever I was transplanted, I could survive and even thrive when fed 3 things. And yes, to this day I can easily survive on them. Good bread, good cheese, and good chocolate, preferably Swiss. Now, I had been well nourished by local delicacies in far places like Nepal and South Africa. So at first here I did not worry. Food was plentiful, right? I mean, I would laugh at the suggestion that bread came in square slices in a plastic bag. As for Wisconsin cheese, whatever it was hiding behind those garish colors was not for me to find out. So, yes, I did survive on a lot of Kit Kats. But you know what? Australia was next, right? Well, somehow, we got a small apartment and jobs and a TV. Not my idea. I did not want to be here. Sorry, but America was never on my must-see list. But my boyfriend had firmly planted roots with a long list of people I know and a business. I was adrift. I'd go in a store and leave an hour later empty-handed, unable to pick one shampoo out of 40. So many options, so many choices. Which one was the right one? You see, in the land of opportunity, I couldn't pick. I longed for a place, you know, to bloom, but manageable, comfortable, controllable. Well, soon enough, my roots and I, not nourished, started to wither. That's when I decided that focusing on one item only was the right way. I focused on the one thing about which life is not worth living: finding a baguette. Now, I mentioned food was plentiful. I did not say it was tasty. And trust me, I searched high and I searched low. There were breads everywhere, but not bread. And no, Ralph's, a name does not a baguette make. I tried adapting, but what is adapt but having one foot in fond memories and another in a bakery not yet discovered? So I tried subsisting on things like art, history, culture. I did find some affinity with culture in your book. But no whispered mysteries from ancient stones, no hidden messages in old paints. America was so young, too new. It did not have the weight of history to anchor me. So in desperation, I clung to the one identity I knew. A little old, maybe, a little neglected, for sure, my Frenchness. But alas, we became renewed cravings for good bread, good cheese, and good chocolate, preferably Swiss. I did supplement with French movies and books and music. And that's when I started cheering for France at sports events. That is until they got eliminated, then I'd switch over to the US because they usually win. except in soccer, because in soccer France rules. I was so desperate. I was miserable. I kept on asking so much bigness and not one suitable loaf. Then one day, heaven heard my cries, took pity, and sent an angel, the mailman. I buy wines there, and they have cheeses too. So I flew to Pasadena, and indeed, there was heaven. It even had a name, Trader Joe's. Some say that I cried in the aisle, but no, I was merely drinking at the fountain of life. I filled up my cart to the rim with remedies for my culinary distress and my melancholy. And in the parking lot, I gorged on brie and gruyere and even Swiss chocolates. Still no bread, I told myself, but well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad, right? Taste buds came back to life, and so did the soul. So maybe now we can plant ourselves and make a go of it. It's 40 years later. Yes, I have a life, a couple of daughters hiding here. I have a list of people I know, and even my own little business. Still no bread. Now you could say, or a therapist might say, that I cannot allow myself to be 100% American until I have found this fantastic loaf. But I know better, because after 4 decades on the quest, the truth is, some things can only be French. Anything else is a wannabe. And I know I'm right, because 4 years ago I went to France. And yes, I pillaged bakeries and markets. And you know what? The humblest loaf was but a gift from the gods. But yet, however French I had come to feel in America, something back there was a little off, as if the soil that had given me birth was no longer fully compatible with my roots today. So I asked my friends, is France really that restricted? Is it really that small? And they looked at me and said, oh, you're so American. But honestly, they're barely allowed to drive over 45. Who can live like that? So where does that leave me? I still get confused when asked, where's home? Do you mean where I live here, where I live now, or where I grew up? Am I a French chicken? Am I an American frog? Well, I don't know for sure, but I know that as long as the cheese and chocolate aisles are fully stocked up at Trader Joe's and in Heaven's Warehouse, Costco, then I might be fine. As long, of course, as there is a baguette waiting for me somewhere out there. So I'll call myself a hybrid in the meantime. And you know what? I did locate a couple of places with what I would call acceptable croissant. So that should keep me going a little while longer. You know, until I get to Australia.
Martine, we've met before. Not HR either. Our last speaker, you ready? Can you imagine who that might be? Can't sound. Our last storyteller is the show producer, Miyo Yamauchi. Yes. Coming from a small island called Japan, Miyo thought everything would be fine in America as long as she followed the when in Rome rule. You know, just act like the locals do, and all would be good. But it didn't take much time for Miyo to realize that acting like a Roman while in America was a surefire way to run the risk of getting deported. Miyo Yamauchi, are you legal?
Hey Miyo, let's go to Tijuana. We can park at the border and walk across. Tijuana? Mexico? I didn't bring a passport with me. Miyo, you have a California driver's license, right? That's all you need. You're safe. To be honest, fear crossed my mind. But what do I know? I'm from Japan, a small island, surrounded by the oceans. To visit another country, we need to take a boat or plane. So crossing the border on foot is beyond my imagination. Maybe each country has different rules and customs. Walking across is like leaving a zoo or amusement park. They don't check your IDs, weapons, or stamp on your hand. You just walk through the turnstile and out the gate. I didn't need to talk to anybody or show anything. Once in Mexico, we just walked around for 30 minutes and get back to the border again. When I got into the line for customs, I felt a bit nervous. I observed each movement. Everybody is moving quickly and showing driver's license and crossing the border. And so did my friend. So like everybody else, I showed my driver's license. And the US Customs officer asked me something. I don't remember what the question was, but it was something like how I was or how my trip was. When he heard my accent, I felt his energy shift. Do you have a citizenship or green card? My heart starts racing. No, I only have a student visa. As soon as I said that, I felt tension. He asked me for my passport. I didn't bring a passport with me. If you don't, you're not welcome to America. From there, they kept asking me why I crossed the border without a passport. Over and over for the next 5 hours. I'm sorry, I was ignorant, I didn't know. That's all I could say. I don't know what will happen next. Will I be expelled from school, detained, or deported? So many questions were flashing from left to right in my brain. My friend didn't ditch me, but he couldn't do anything other than wait. We sat in the waiting room silently. Eventually, they released me after they found my information from the immigration, verified my legal status, and charged me for a document fee. So, I wasn't safe at all. In Japan, I've never thought of my safety. I walked alone in the middle of the night without any concerns. When I forgot my wallet, the train station lent me money so that I could travel to the destination. When I missed the last train, police officers gave me a ride. So, when I was in Japan, I didn't have to think about my safety because society was my safety net. But here, an oblivious action can become costly and sometimes fatal. My passport instant was an expensive lesson, a $250 lesson. The lesson was my life in America is so fragile that one little misstep can stop the music. I have to be my own safety net. Years passed. Today, it's 2018. I'm at the Hollywood Bowl. It's one of the classical music concert nights conducted by Placido Domingo. My friend and I found a perfect parking spot on the street and get a picnic table inside the Hollywood Bowl. I know, it's a miracle. As we open a wine bottle to celebrate our victory, a gentleman approaches our table. Is this taken? There are 4 of us. He has a friendly smile with blue eyes and beautiful white hair. Join us, we were waiting for you. We smile back. He thanks us and spreads out his tablecloth next to ours. Soon, his wife and friends join him. We start talking. They ask, we are from Pasadena. Where are you from? We came from the west side. They ask again. We're in the west. I'm from Mid-Wilshire, and she's from West LA. My friend answers. I'm thinking, well, they must have favorite stores or restaurants on the west side. But no, nothing like that. They are not satisfied with our answers. Where are you from originally? My friend says San Diego, and I say Japan. Then his wife turns around and asks, are you a citizen? What a perfect question for small talk. Of course I'm a citizen. To be accurate, I'm a Japanese citizen. But I know what she meant, so I said, I don't have an American citizenship. After a little pause, she says, you are safe with us. People at the table smile at me, nodding. What is this? Is this a cult or a new religion I don't know about? Am I in danger? Do I need somebody to save me? I know she meant well, but there is something wrong with the conversation, right? We are just sharing the table at the Hollywood Bowl. This is not an intervention. I don't know them. They don't know me. When did my legal status fall into the same category as the weather? Are you legal? I started getting this question from time to time in the past 6-7 years. I don't think the questions come from evil spirits. Probably, they are just curious. Then, do they also ask if anybody is a criminal? Wait, living here illegally is not a crime. Did you know that? I didn't know that before. The rule is becoming vague these days, but as far as I know, it's still a civil infraction, like speeding or jaywalking. Then, why don't they ask me if I have violated those laws too? While I'm listening to the beautiful classical music, I simulate all the possible scenarios. If I say I'm legal, do they take my word for it? How do they know if I'm telling the truth? And what if I were an illegal alien? How safe am I? Will they risk their lives to protect me? Or do they want to adopt me? They never even invite me to their house with the gorgeous view they bragged about. Probably they are safe. Doesn't mean anything. The conversation I had at the Hollywood Bowl was not unusual for me, but it should be unusual for everybody. When we recognize the humanity of others, we feel protected. Recognizing the humanity comes from understanding. Understanding starts from listening. Listening is a simple gesture, but sometimes it's more reassuring than words. Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's welcome back our beautiful host, Thank you so much for coming today. Let's give another round of applause to our storytellers. time allows, please join us outside and just mingle. Thank you so much for coming.